Business Gateway webinar. I'm Kirsty Rollings, your host for today, and we're going to be looking at content is key, so discussing the marketing approaches during a pandemic. So first of all, I'd just like to say hello to our two marketing experts who are joining us today. First of all, Fiona, do you want to give us a wave? This is Fiona Hawkins, Managing Director of PlinkFizz, and also Paul Brammer, CEO of Exesios. So just before I ask them to properly introduce themselves, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, and just to let you know the ways in which you can get involved and ask questions, because obviously we'd love to hear your questions, and an opportunity for us to give our ideas and expertise in answering those. So the two ways that you can submit questions, the first is to the right hand side of this screen. You should see there's a box there, and ask your questions there, and I will be looking at them throughout the webinar and picking out some questions to put to the panel. The second way is by scrolling down, and this is the anonymous way. So if you don't want to reveal your identity, you can submit your questions there via email. I will see your name, but I won't be reading it out during the webinar. And just to let you know that the webinar will be recorded so we can share it at a later date. Just final thing before we move on to introductions, after the webinar we do hope that you can join us on Twitter, where we're going to be taking the conversation further. So the hashtag we're using is hashtag Keele Talks Business, and it's an opportunity for people to connect and continue the conversation there. Okay. So shall we start then with Paul? Paul, would you like to introduce yourself and just give a little bit of background about you and your business, please?
Hi, yes, hi, thank you, Kirsty. Yeah, I'm Paul Brammer, MD of Exesios Advertising Agency, or BDD, which means Brand, Digital and Design. We're now in our 20th, almost 20th year. So we've seen a lot of things. When we first started, we started as a interactive multimedia agency, and selling a website was like trying to sell sand in the desert. It was all yellow pages. Nobody knew what a website was. Now everything we do is web-based. So it suits us. What's happened now, we were already geared up for, we're partners with an international agency up there everywhere who are cloud-based right from their inception. So we've taken on their ways of working, and we just moved into Keele in our new lovely creative space, and within 2 weeks we've had to move out. So it's been an interesting time for everybody, I'm sure. But we've got a team of specialists from copywriting, performance marketing, internet web design, print design, exhibition design, the full gamut. So I tend to look after the brand side of things and place branding elements, where we're working on quite a large project with a local regional agency right now. But because that's ongoing, I can't really say too much about it, but it's interesting research. So we're going through the research stages right now, and it's really interesting what's being talked about and what's coming up. So yeah, I think nearly 20 years of me is probably enough. So I'll pass on to Fiona, I think.
Thank you. Okay, so would you like to give a little bit of an overview, Fiona?
Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you for inviting me first of all. So we are PlinkFizz. We're a full service marketing agency. Been established for 17 years, and prior to that I was client side. So I worked with a lot of agencies and sort of saw the other side of it, of working with them, and what I'd like to see and what I didn't. So from an agency point of view, we're a full service agency. We have copywriters, similar to Paul really, you know, web developers, designers, but very much we specialise in digital marketing. We are a Google partner, we're a Facebook marketing partner as well, so we're spending a lot of time in recent weeks in particular helping our clients move their operations into the digital space where perhaps they weren't previously, or perhaps they started that process and we've taken that for them and helped them make it a little bit more complex and taken the messaging to where their audience really are listening to it at the moment. So yeah, we were voted Northern Marketing Agency of the Year a couple of years ago, and that's something that we're really proud of, and that's testament to the team that we've got here, really. So it's not all down to me. So if we do have any questions in, and they are not my area of specialism, I'm very happy to follow up afterwards and get one of the members of the team to talk with you guys directly.
That's lovely. Thank you both for your very comprehensive introductions, and also a big thank you for joining us for this webinar today. So we have had a few questions that have been submitted prior to the webinar starting, and they have been kind of quite top level questions. I think it's one we could perhaps start with. So just considering the amount of forced changes that we have had in recent months, including in our home life, in our work life, and also in perhaps as businesses, what we are offering to our customers, lots of our offers have changed, and importantly, in many cases, our customers' needs may have also changed. So we've had questions in from Maxine Clark and Beverly Ryan Redfern. Thank you very much around what top level advice are you giving your clients at this point in time? So would you like to start, Fiona?
Okay, we're advising our clients really to look at areas where they can A, diversify, and B, create a new opportunity for themselves as well. One of the first areas that a lot of clients want to do is, of course, cut back on any spend that is leaving the business as well. So very early on, a few weeks ago, we sent an email out to all of our clients, giving them information about where they can look for Google ad credits if they've been advertising with Google during the last couple of years, which Google's made £1 million available. Google's made £340 million available. Facebook has done something very similar. They've made £100 million available. So if brands have been advertising using Facebook, there are areas, we can signpost where to go for that. I've also encouraged our clients to sign up with the Confederation of British Industry as well. They're making a huge amount of resources available online free of charge temporarily. So to access that kind of information would usually cost a business at least £500 a year to do that. So they're sort of practical advice, but from a tactical marketing advice, really, it's about being very, very close to your clients and knowing and understanding what they need. And the process that we always start off with is, something very simple like a SWOT analysis, and then we use a number of different business delivery models. So that changes for every single client. So, I'd recommend really going back to basics, reviewing your business plan, reviewing who your audiences are, and just sense checking to see if they are still the same people and if they're still looking for the same products and services from you, because it may well have shifted.
I think that's a really interesting point. I think that it is an opportunity, especially where some businesses might have more time on their hands at the moment, to really come back to basics and think about opportunities to innovate, but also the audience. What are your thoughts around that, Paul?
Very similar to Fiona's, to be honest. We've been helping clients to sort of basically reimagine what they're doing. For one client, we're rebuilding an online learning platform because they teach in the medical industry. So we're making it linked to other systems, so it works with their back system that has over 4,000 actors on it, so that they can then take it to market after this. So they're coming out with a completely new product after this, which they had never envisaged before this sort of a crisis. But out of the crisis comes some good stuff. So yeah, it's a case of just rethinking and rebooting and continue to do what you've been doing. I think afterwards is going to be different. There's going to be less people in the marketplace. There's going to be less money. I know Coca-Cola have killed their UK ad spend for the whole of the year. So it's going to be challenging, but this is what we do. We enjoy this sort of stuff.
Is this a chance, Paul, for the 3 R's that you spoke about before?
Yeah, react, relearn and reimagine, and rethink and reboot. So yeah, it's all these sort of nice little marketing sort of terminology, but also to repurpose a lot of clients out there have got video footage which they can repurpose and use again. A good example was the Visit Portugal campaign, where they say you could, before it was you can't skip us, and now they say you can't skip hope. It's really powerful. They did it in a room, in a flat, in fact, on their iPhone, the actual audio recording. So there are ways of doing things economically, using what you've got, what you've had before, and just revisit it and make it work again, because sometimes it works better the second time round. That's what I've been told anyway. So a lot of companies are doing that right now.
Yeah, and just thinking about content, I don't know whether this is a good time to share an advert that we were hoping to show here from Nationwide. Just on the basis of what you've just said about, we're all in a similar situation. We can't get out, we can't always create new content in terms of video. But is this a chance? Even companies as big as Nationwide are using it quite well, in my opinion, creating new content that is literally recorded and scripted by just the normal person. And is this a time for us to be thinking about doing that? So I wonder if we can just have a quick look now. I think it's just a minute long of the Nationwide advert, so we've got a little bit of a chance to consider that as a form of content.
Hello, me in 6 months' time. Firstly, sorry about all the weight gain, but in my defence, I was housebound and not wearing work trousers, so hope you're on top of that. How are you? I mean that because we actually mean it at the minute. When we're asking, I don't know if you remember, when we're checking in with each other, we really actually care about the answer. How are you? How's your health? How's your kids? How's your family? How's your head? Are you keeping it together? Keep looking out for each other, okay? Don't take each other for granted. How's Mum? Listen, we are really missing her. Don't take her for granted, okay? We are really missing her, and not just the childcare, okay?
Yep, so very much stripped back advert from, a huge company, but in terms of content creation, very clearly low budget, but also very powerful. What are your thoughts about that kind of content at this point in time?
Well, there's a danger of it being overused right now. I think people are getting a little bit oversaturated with, like we're seeing now, small people on small screens. I think it was good 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think things need to move on really and become a bit more, dare I say, a bit more professional again. It's great having sort of homemade things. People are even using TikTok that they never even heard of, which is fun. There's a bit of fun element going on there. People dancing in front of their garage doors that we never ever saw before. It's a time to have a bit of fun amongst all the angst and the sort of not nice stuff that's going on. But I think we've got to get a little bit more focused again and just reboot and look at things and yeah, I think the small screen pictures are just about had its day almost.
And what are your thoughts, Fiona? Do you see this as authentic and there's a time and a place for it? Do you think the time and place is, we've still got more time? Where do you think we are in the process of really considering our content at the moment?
I think we're in a really interesting space at the moment, because what a lot of brands are doing, which is what you've just demonstrated as well, is they are looking for audience-generated content. So they're looking for the people that actually engage with their brands already to create content for them. And at the beginning of this sort of process that we've gone through with clients in particular, we produced a white paper, and one of the elements in there is about this humanity and this human touch. And I think we're all in a space now where humanity, that this human touch is very, very important to us. And that is being lost. And I think what user-generated content allows people to do is still feel involved in that. You know, I agree with Paul. We do need to get back to some kind of normality, and we need to, you know, become more serious about it in coming weeks. But in the short term, I think brands that are investing large sums of budget into creating very expensive adverts, I don't think that's going to be particularly well received by the public. I think brands that are empathetic and showing understanding to the fact that a lot of people are going to be, you know, financially impacted by this moving forward, I think they'll be the winners in this.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. In many ways, it could be argued that we saw an ex-professional footballer lead the way with that when Gary Neville, through his hotel football, quite early in the sort of social distancing and lockdown phase, made quite an impactful statement about what he was going to repurpose his hotel for. And that was to provide a safe space for NHS workers and still continue to pay the people at the hotel a full wage. And in many ways, that really did set the tone and lead the way for other companies. And it's interesting how other people have kind of taken that authentic and empathetic approach moving forward. Shall we move on to a question that we've had in that's coming from Kevin O'Mara, so from Advanced Journey Chauffeuring. So he said he's a small, successful business based in Stone in Staffordshire. When people are unable to travel during this period of lockdown, what advice can you give to best engage our existing and potential audience through current online mediums, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn? In addition to that question, I'd also like to open it up and see, are there other platforms for us to consider during this pandemic?
Yeah, well, actually, I've used Kevin's services, so I know he's very, very good service. Yeah, I think he's got to look at the safety perspective. Chauffeur services are obviously safer than public transport right now, so that's one nice selling factor. It'd be good to provide updates and advice on current restrictions around travel, what you can, what you can't do, etc. And just keep doing these nice little touches. We've been to Portugal, came back, got all the luggage out, and Kevin just gave me a bag with a pint of milk and a small loaf of bread, just so I could get in, have a cup of tea and have a bit of toast. So well done, Kevin. Nice one.
Have you got anything to add to that, Fiona?
Yeah, I think what is really interesting at the minute is this focus around bringing communities together. So it's not just about the places that we live, it's about shared interests and shared knowledge. And we're seeing a huge increase in the amount of, like, Facebook groups, for example, that are people coming together with a common purpose. And it links back to the humanity again. And I think what would be very good while Kevin's in this space where he perhaps can't perform his business as usual is to reach out to some of those communities and see where he can actually add some value. So he is based in Stone in Staffordshire. So I know in Stone and Staffordshire, there's a huge amount of sort of
heroes and villains from the Corona piece.
Right. Do you want to go first, Fiona? Or...
Okay, it's quite a complex question. Thanks, Rachel. Heroes and villains. I think very early on, some brands made the wrong call. And I think some of those calls were driven by maybe committed advertising spend that they didn't want to lose the potential on, or introducing products to the market that were untimely. ASOS were one of those, unfortunately, that introduced a chainmail face mask. That was back in, I think it was February, March time. In fact, it was March time, and they were called out. There were 60 odd complaints for that very quickly. And similarly, I guess, KFC ran an advert in February that continued on until March, which showed people licking their fingers as they were eating the product. And again, that's something that perhaps they should have pulled sooner than they did. So I think, you know, brands like that are going to have to work hard to build the credibility and trust back again. But in terms of brands that I think have done well, there are brands like BT, for example, that are using their core values to actually create content and share that content out with their community. So, you know, their overall purpose and strategy is about being a valued partner and helping build better digital links. And their advert that launched this week with Claire Balding, which is part of a mini-series, that demonstrates exactly that it's about teaching people how to use different social media platforms that perhaps hadn't done that before, but they can take the opportunity now to take the time to understand it a little bit more and reach out to family and friends that they're perhaps not in touch with as much.
Yeah, that's a great example, Fiona, and thanks for sharing that. We do actually have a clip from that. I know the series is 3 minutes long, but I think for the purposes of this, we can play the first sort of 40 or 50 seconds to give people a flavour of the BT and ITV advert, because as you say, it is exactly now is a time where people have thought, lots of marketeers might think, if only we had more time, we could provide that kind of content, and now might be that time. So yeah, if we just show the first sort of 40 or 50 seconds of the BT and ITV advert that Fiona's just referred to now.
And now a special ad break brought to you by BT and ITV, helping to keep the nation connected with a series of daily top tips on tech.
Hi there. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. I think now more than ever in these unprecedented times, we need to be making contact with each other. And that's why BT and ITV have put together these really simple skills films to help you make the best use of technology. Today, I'll be talking about messaging apps like WhatsApp to stay connected. Now, it's really simple stuff, and you might be all over this already, but if you know somebody who isn't quite as tech savvy, then do share this with them and help them get connected. It's free to download, so just go to the App Store, search for WhatsApp and click on this icon.
Brilliant.
Then it's
Thank you. So, Paul, I saw that you were smiling during the showing of that, and I do think there's some nice parts to it. Why is it so powerful?
I think it's just sort of relevant to now, and it's I've seen it a couple of times now, and it's just sort of really on the button for what's needed. As far as telecoms companies go, I think EE have done a good job with Kevin Bacon, giving free things. We know what's going on rather than locking us into year, 18-month and 2 and 3 year contracts. So I think all the telecoms agencies are doing well. They're partnering up. They're doing very good. Regarding the couple of villains, I don't think Wetherspoons won any prizes for PR at the beginning of it, and also the Premier League clubs. I think they tried to readdress the balance, but I think it still leaves a slightly bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. about what went on at the beginning, and they were trying to make it, you know, make a lot of money out of a bad situation. So thanks for that, Rachel. That was a really good question. So yeah.
So just sort of tying into something of what you've just kind of answered there. I know that Fiona was speaking a lot about providing useful content, really thinking about our audience at the centre of things, and you've just said about that as well, Paul, and appropriateness of selling, I guess, at this point in time. And as marketeers, really, at the essence of it all, we are here to create and drive demand. But because this is such an unusual time, I suppose it is a time for us to reflect and think whether now is the right time for us to be doing that. And it brings us on to a question from Anna Mullins at Clamson Industries, who said, in the situation of a manufacturing company, what is the best way to address business opportunities without pushing a hard sell approach? And is it wrong to use the current situation to attract business from other competitors? What are your thoughts, Fiona?
I think around competitors, if your sales process supports that, if that's part of your sales strategy, then I don't think there's any reason to change that. I think there is opportunity to demonstrate value. So whether that's to your employees, whether that's to your local communities, or any networking groups that you're a part of, I think there's definitely opportunity to create some content, but it's finding where those people are at the moment, because obviously a lot of people are just not in work or they're furloughed. So the switch in platforms that people are engaging with at the minute is really quite significant. We're finding that, for example, messages on Facebook has increased by 50%. And there's an opportunity to place advertising within those messages as well. Instagram Live, for example, Instagram Live videos. So if you're a production, if you've got facility, if you're manufacturing, you can create some really interesting content, perhaps have a behind closed doors approach. So Instagram videos have increased by 288% in the last few weeks. So there are definitely opportunities to still create content, still add value, and actually go and find your audiences where they are now consuming their content, which in the majority is social media.
As marketing agencies, have either of you been asked in the last few months about advertising on different platforms, potentially platforms that you were not familiar with, 2 months ago? We're all looking at different places. I know myself, I'm perhaps in house party from time to time in places that I'd never even heard of 2 months ago. Are your clients coming to you and asking questions around that?
Well, we're currently looking at using TikTok and linking that in with a Google ads campaign for a particular client. That client has also had his website rebuilt from the bottom up to refocus his imagery, the whole way of selling things, the whole user experience. So we've had clients that are really sort of going to town and rebuilding their whole business almost, and just refocusing everything. Regarding the idea of, is it good, in the question, is it ethical, I suppose, to sort of look at competition? I think that's business. Why not? Why can't we be competitive? That's how things get better, is by being competitive. I don't think there's anything wrong in being competitive. Okay, it's good to partner up now. There's a lot of partnerships going on, but there's still differences between companies that add value to various different clients in different ways. So there's good ways and bad ways about doing things, but I think as long as you're considerate and careful and just sort of like be caring. One of our largest clients have got over 40,000 employees. They started a big community campaign across all their employees. They haven't, because they're across multiple continents, furloughing really wasn't an option for them. So they've just built a massive, great big community and campaign. And they've gone basically from retention from acquisition down to retention. So they just want to retain their current client base. They're not really interested in getting new clients. They just want to maintain what they have and come out of this with, I suppose, at least 80% of their customer base. And that's their intentions. But they're big enough to weather the storm. But a lot of small businesses, they've got to think differently, obviously.
So we've had on the live stream, we've had Kevin O'Mara get back in touch, and thank you, Paul, for your positive testimonial.
He deserves it. He deserves it.
And we've also had Millennial get in touch and ask the question: what's more effective content? Question: what's more effective, SEO or videos on social media?
Both.
I guess you would say the same, Fiona.
I agree. I think it's about what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to target. You know, if you're trying to be a disruptor, then maybe video marketing and maybe seeding that video marketing across different social media channels. You know, Paul's already talked about TikTok, for example. You know, you've got TikTok, you've got Instagram, you've got Shazam, you've got all of those different platforms. As well as the traditional ones. SEO is great if people are looking for a product or they're looking for a brand or a service. If they are not looking for that, you need to interrupt their daily life with your message, and you need to make sure that you are interrupting them in the place that they're spending time. So there isn't a straightforward answer to that one, I don't think, without understanding a little bit more about what's trying to be achieved. But completely, as Paul said, you know, potentially both, but it depends on what you're trying to achieve with it.
Yeah, thank you. So just encourage people to continue to push forward their questions, and we'll do everything we can to take a look at those. So we've had a question in here, and it's something that certainly I've been thinking about in the last few weeks as well, and that as marketeers, very naturally, usually to all of us, is our sense of networking and looking for opportunities. We would encourage other people in business to go out and network and to build those links that are long lasting, and people that you can call on at different points and grab real opportunities. And certainly at Keele University, through the Business Gateway, that's something that we encourage all of the time through our new Smart Innovation Hub. These kind of networking opportunities. So a question that's come in from Steve Hargraves, who's the business engagement manager actually at Keele University. He says that he's followed both of your companies for some time and been really impressed at how good you both are with client engagement and relationship building. So he was wondering if you've changed your approach drastically in current circumstances, and if you have any tips, or if you're aware of any useful platforms away from just the usual Microsoft Teams that really allow opportunities to garner these networking opportunities.
Again, that's a very complex question. Thank you very much, Steve, for that. From our point of view, from a business point of view, we are just leveraging whatever tech is available to us. Our culture is very much about continued learning and growth through tech. So using new tech to carry out everyday life and everyday business life, it is, it's second nature. I think part of what our role is as well is educating our clients as well to use new tech. And you talked about networking and meetings. I've had a huge amount of networking meetings. I've had a huge amount of client meetings that haven't involved brilliantly getting in a car and spending 2 hours on the M6, and actually really productively putting that time back into delivery and strategic planning. We would far rather spend time planning and really thinking about what we need to deliver for clients than spending that time in a car. So I see, Zoom and Teams and all of the rest of it as a great opportunity to continue to keep in touch. But actually, we can be so much more productive using these tools as well. Paul's mentioned e-learning platforms. We've got clients that use e-learning platforms really successfully prior to the pandemic, really helped them with things like staff retention and increase all of their mandatory training and keep a track of that. And that's coming into its own as well now. It's giving people an opportunity to continue learning and developing when perhaps they're not able to work. So, any platform for me that gives us opportunity to continue to learn and grow and speak and communicate to one another is fantastic.
Yeah, and this could be quite an interesting question for you, Paul, because I know one of the affiliate company, I think, to yours was, well, you perhaps like to explain it yourself, it has always been remote, and so maybe this is quite interesting hearing how other people are adjusting to these changes.
Yeah, well, we've been using Zoom for a couple of years now. Up There Everywhere are in touch with the actual developers of Zoom. So we're pretty well used to this type of communication. But getting our clients and advising our clients has been quite interesting. And also Up There Everywhere have had to change their model to almost become a broadcaster, where they had, I think it was with Galderma, they normally have end of year exhibitions and celebrations. They've had to put that all online. They've done five events over three time zones over 5 days with 21,000 people looking on. So they've become essentially a broadcaster from Stockholm. They've had the luxury of being able to do things because Stockholm's not been locked down. So they've had the benefit of that. But they've adjusted, they've changed, and they've reacted to the current situation. And instead of the client losing out, the client has gained a big benefit on this, and there's been real added value, I think, from the whole team. So yeah, it's been really interesting to see what's going on, and it's, as you say, it's much better for the environment now because we're not getting people jumping on planes. Before, the CEO from Up There would just jump on a plane, come over, see us, and then jump on a plane and go back. Well, now it's not. It's just picking up the Zoom, and even, to be honest, picking up the phone. Old-fashioned technology is great. Just pick up the phone, text somebody, and be more personal. I've changed my footer contact address to my personal mobile number now, as opposed to a company number. So anybody needs to get in touch with me, they can get directly in touch with me almost any time of the day. I had one client on Good Friday, wanted some images, wanted some other information, wanted a document in a particular format. Well, he got me, I did it, and he was happy. By Sunday, he was doing a presentation in Europe for Monday morning. Well, normally that wouldn't normally be the case because he would have had the company number. He could have got through by email. We would have probably reacted, but not in the same way. So I think by being a lot more personal and being available is the way that we're actually all reacting now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've had a comment coming from Craig Smith, which I think is something that now we're even further down this, that people just the last few weeks have started to comment that now we're online in both our professional lives, lots of businesses are, and personally we're spending a lot of time in front of computer screens. Will we see digital fatigue, and will people crave time away from the screen? And I'd like to add to that, how does that impact when for marketeers, when we're thinking that the main way we're communicating with people is digitally at the moment?
Well, I've got 2 pairs of glasses now, one for digital and one for normal. So yeah, I'm getting really fatigued with all this, but I've given our whole digital team a week off just so they don't burn themselves out, because they're running almost full capacity right now. Whereas the print team, exhibition teams, they're not doing anything. Incidentally, I had one request, and that was yesterday, for a postcard. But the trouble is now is trying to get it printed. All the printers are closed down. So I've got a school that wants to contact in the real world, as it were, by giving their new students a tactile, nice postcard that that they can put up on there. So not everybody really wants digital. There are signs of going back to nice print, nice things that you can feel. And yeah, I think we're getting to a fatigue over saturation point of view, and it'd be good to actually sort of start branching out again. That's my view anyway.
And something that's quite interesting really as a way, it does tie in with print, but it also gets us thinking about platforms. And Fiona alluded to it earlier when she said about some companies might not have sent the right messages out because they'd already paid for advertising space in advance. And something that we can share on the screens now is from Emily's Veg Sticks, which you may or may not have heard of before, but actually, as you can see there, their advert, I think in central London, it says, "Our first ever poster seen by a runner and one pigeon." Typical. So we've got an example there of, and there's another that's come up. I can't quite read it, but something in similar vein that's taking quite an ironic approach to the fact that they'd paid for advertising space in advance, and all of a sudden it's gone live at the point when we're all in lockdown and very few people are going to see it in the flesh. But of course, what they've done there has brought about a sense of humour, really, at what is quite a difficult time for a lot of people. So just posing the question to you, really, Fiona, is this the right time for humour? Will things change over time? It does feel as though we're perhaps a bit further on now than we were 5 weeks ago. And it also ties into a second question from Nick Gostick. Is it too soon to look forward in our marketing messaging?
I think it's all that we can do as marketeers is plan with the information that is available to us. There have been so many different moods in the nation over the last few weeks where I think brands have had to be very sensitive and very empathetic towards what that mood of the nation is and what that might mean for their communications. You know, what you've just, the ad you've just shared with us as well, that, you know, that's a great example of a brand saying, you know, great, you know, we're in lockdown, this is potentially wasted spend, but we'll pop something in there anyway, and hopefully people will remember that. I think they were better off doing that than running with probably the planned creative that they might have had signed off weeks and weeks, if not months prior. So I think it very much is about the mood of the nation. You know, we feel like, you know, maybe we can see light at the end of the tunnel. Thankfully, the number of new cases appears to be going down. And, you know, let's hope that continues. But let's also be empathetic towards the general state of the nation and the fact that some people just do not want to return to the way that things were before. You know, some people are actively saying, you know, a big percentage are actively saying, I don't want things to go back to normal. And if that's the case, as brand managers and brand marketeers, we need to be really mindful of that, and make sure that whatever strategies we're developing for our clients supports the mood as well.
And a big part of marketing, and in lots of platforms, different scales depending on different size of businesses, is around exhibitions, and that might be very small local exhibitions, and it could be national, international exhibitions where lots of money might be ploughed into those key events where key audiences would come to those places and there's a chance for businesses to interact. Rachel Kelsall's asked another question to you both about this, and maybe we could go to Paul first. Do you think this might herald a new era in exhibitions, given Paul's comments regarding the changes he's seen in Stockholm?
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity now for virtual exhibitions to really expand. Like the BBC has just done a series of virtual exhibitions where Andy Warhol's exhibition was at the Tate Modern, and you got and you actually saw the exhibition better than if you were there in a way. You got a really good narrative going on, a good explanation, which you probably wouldn't have understood by looking at it yourself. So I think there's a chance of almost setting up physical exhibitions and then using video to do a tour of that exhibition and promote the companies in more targeted ways. I know Keele, I think Jonathan's done a 360-degree tour of the Innovation Centre. Things like that can be really quite powerful now, and the 3D world and augmented reality is where we ought to really start looking at. And there's a lot of potential there, yeah.
Mm. And even thinking just going back to the kind of networking idea, a session like this, lots of people will have come here today to hear from you two, because that, you know, that's the kind of pull of the draw. But also people would traditionally, if this was taking place where we were all together, would have used this opportunity to speak to each other afterwards and before, around, you know, networking opportunities there. And we're always looking at ways that we can facilitate that and still allow that to happen. One of the reasons why we're asking people to continue with the conversation after today with the hashtag Keele Talks Business to sort of do that. But I imagine that there will be tech companies that will be looking at innovation and how they can bring that together more and more as, you know, as things, you know, develop, and if we are moving towards a more social distancing lifestyle, even going forward after the pandemic has really kind of dropped.
Well, I think Keele Innovation Centre will be at the centre of all that innovation, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, we've had a comment from Malcolm Henson. Thank you very much, Malcolm. I think more of a comment more than a question, but still great all the same. Scrubs for Stoke have been successful in their advertising and produced 2,500 items via social media platforms. I think this is fantastic, don't you? We do. And apparently the nurse who started the marketing campaign trained at Keele.
Wow.
So that's always good to add on.
Fantastic.
Good news stories.
So just to kind of bring things together, really, I know that the overall aim of this session is to really get people ignited and to ignite people's imaginations thinking about content, what content to share, and appropriateness of content. There's been a lot of questions around that. To sort of sum up those things, this is a question about overall what your overall content sort of says about you and your brand during a global crisis. So when we're thinking about the content that we're sharing, and sometimes it's been quite reactive over perhaps the last few weeks, unlike what we'd usually be doing, quite planned and strategic. What advice or what kind of comments do you have, if we perhaps start with you, Paul, in terms of what does the content say about your brand during a global crisis?
I think it's got to show that you care about your customer, about or even your clients, whatever. I think we're actually revisiting our whole website ourselves. We are looking at the content, what we say, the way we say it, the type of imagery. And I think as long as you sort of reconsider everything and targeted it in a much more caring way for everybody out there, and be very informative and just give things away for once. Don't sort of keep things to your chest. If there is some information out there that can be useful, well, let's tell people. Let's not sort of have that competitive advantage as I mentioned before, which is sometimes an advantage, but we can actually share that with our partner and sort of local companies that we all sort of get together with. So I think a lot of collaboration and just sort of like listen to people and be nice, be caring, yeah.
Yeah. Lovely summary. So Fiona, what's your view on the question? What is your content saying about your overall brand and what you're sharing in a very unusual scenario and situation like now?
I think there's a few ways to look at it, really. For me, your content really needs to represent your core values and your business ethic. And we've seen that played out an awful lot with someone's like the BT example that we shared earlier. There is another example that I think was, it was very agile. It was produced very, very quickly. I don't know if we've got to share. It was the Channel 4 example. And basically the Channel 4 clip was targeted at young males that perhaps weren't heeding the initial warnings about the spread of coronavirus. So what Channel 4 did is created some content that really was driven by their core values. So it was about being innovative and being distinctive, inspiring change, stimulating public debate. I don't know if we've got that clip available.
We don't have that clip available, but what I'm thinking is what we'll do is we'll share that from our official Twitter page to start the conversation rolling after the event. So that's at Keele Business. We'll share that clip from there straight after the event.
Fantastic. So I think it is about being innovative, moving forward in a very agile way that reflects the way that business is going to need support moving forward. We are not all going to go back to the way that we were before. That much is, it's absolutely clear. Some businesses are totally unaffected, but there's a large majority that do need different strategies. And I think as long as they use their core values, their business ethics, and their empathy, then they will win.
Yeah, lovely way to sum up. So just final question before we kind of bring things to a close. This is coming from Nick Moore from Newcastle Underline Council. Nick has asked, what's the most powerful reason for getting sole traders to take responsibility for digital advertising for their business? I'm thinking market traders, for example. So Fiona, would you like to?
So the question, what was that? What's the most powerful reason?
What's the most powerful reason for getting sole traders to take responsibility for digital advertising of their business? So I guess this is a question looking at when we're being forced into a digital era, and people who might not have used those platforms before, what's the main reason to get them in those platforms?
Okay, so I on a personal level, I saw a post on Facebook a couple of weeks ago from somebody that actually lives locally in North Staffordshire, but they were travelling, I think it was to Telford 2 or 3 times a week to trade on a market stall. So what they then did is they took to Facebook and said, look, we can't travel, we can't sell, we're not able to do that. So we'd like to reach out to our local community instead. Would you like to buy from us on Facebook? And if they're not in a position to buy, what information can we share with you? Let's have some fun while we can't operate as normal. So from a brand awareness point of view and being able to continue to position your product, whether you can sell it or not, there's absolutely nothing wrong. And actually it's very advantageous to, set yourself up with a social media profile. Depends what product you sell. Home storage, for example, we've got a client that works in the home storage sector. Their sales are phenomenal and they've increased significantly in the last few weeks. And that's by making sure their message is being seen on the right platform. So, Instagram and Facebook, for example, for them is amazing. So absolutely, if you're a local trader, a store trader, get yourself a presence online. It doesn't cost anything to do. And the rewards and relationship with your local communities could be significant and well rewarded.
Thank you, Fiona. Do you have anything to add to that, Paul?
No, it's pretty well perfect, really. But there are sort of easy things like eBay shops and Amazon Web Services where people can look up, and it's quite self-explanatory. But I'm sure if anybody had any issues, they can get in touch with either Fiona's team or our team, and we can put them in the right way. And we're not going to charge them anything to get them set up and sort of advised. So yeah, that's what.
Thank you, Paul. That's a lovely way to end things. And I'd like to thank both you, Paul and Fiona, very much for really insightful conversation today and for giving your views around all of this. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Hickson's Group, who are based on our Science and Innovation part, for running today's webinar and the rest of the webinars that we've had in this series. And also a big thank you, because I don't always get this opportunity to do this to a public forum, but to my team who've promoted this and all of the other events and the ones that are coming up. So a big thanks to Gethin and Rob, and they will also be continuing the debate afterwards on Twitter, #KeeleTalksBusiness. Also, a big thank you to everybody that's got involved before the webinar and during the webinar with questions. We've not been able to get through all of those questions, which I think is perhaps a good thing in one way, because it shows that lots of people have been really engaged, but maybe we can continue the conversation afterwards. And so just to end, really, it's just to let you know that this is the webinar that you've watched and been part of today is part of a bigger series. So coming up next week, next Tuesday, we'll be looking at working in isolation, supporting yourselves and others. And then the following week, the 18th of May, we've got John Henderson, Chief Executive from Staffs County Council. And the couple of days after, government funding with British Business Bank. And then Thursday, the 28th of May, we're back to marketing, the marketing conundrum. How do businesses communicate during and after COVID-19 with Grant Leboff from Sticky Marketing. So to find out how you can and to sort of stay in touch with all this, please do join our Business Gateway newsletter. You'll be sent a link to that at the end of this webinar, and that allows you to remain in touch with all of the support that's available from Keele's Business Gateway. And of course, a big thank you to the Business Gateway team who bring all of this together and all of the other events. So for now, from myself, Fiona and Paul, we'd like to wish everybody not a safe journey home, because hopefully you're already at home, but safe and stay safe and healthy the remainder of the time, and good luck with your businesses. Do feel free to get in touch with either Fiona or Paul if you've got any follow-up questions. Thank you for now. Goodbye.